I, Alex, 32M, never thought I'd be in this situation. My wife Sarah, 30F, and I have been married for 5 years, and we have a 3-year-old son, Ethan. Our story began back in 2015 when we met at a local coffee shop near the university where Sarah was studying abroad. I was working as a barista to support myself through grad school, and Sarah would come in every morning for her cappuccino. We bonded over our shared love of travel and different cultures. I was fascinated by her stories of growing up in Sao Paulo, and she was equally intrigued by my Japanese-American background. After a whirlwind romance, Sarah decided to stay in the US after finishing her degree. We got married in 2019 in a beautiful ceremony that blended both of our cultures. It was a small affair, with just our closest friends and my family in attendance. Sarah's family couldn't make it due to visa issues, which was hard for her, but we made sure to include Brazilian traditions to honor her roots. Our relationship has always been strong. We rarely argue and have always supported each other's dreams and ambitions. When Sarah expressed her desire to start her own small business importing Brazilian artisanal products, I encouraged her every step of the way. Similarly, she's been my rock as I've climbed the corporate ladder at my tech company. Everything seemed perfect when we welcomed Ethan into our lives 3 years ago. The pregnancy was tough on Sarah, especially being so far from her family. My mom, Yuki, stayed with us for a month after Ethan was born to help out, which Sarah really appreciated. We've always tried to expose Ethan to both of our cultures, teaching him bits of Portuguese and Japanese alongside English. The current situation started about 6 months ago when Sarah's parents, Eduardo, 58M, and Mariana, 55F, came to visit us. It was supposed to be a 2-month stay, their first visit since Ethan was born. They had met him only through video calls, and Sarah was excited for them to finally spend time with their grandson in person. I was initially hesitant about having them stay for so long. My own parents usually visit for a week at most, and I value my personal space. But I knew how much it meant to Sarah, especially since she'd been feeling homesick lately. Her new business was taking off, and she was busier than ever. I thought having her parents around might help ease some of her stress. The first few weeks were okay. Eduardo and Mariana were clearly overjoyed to be with Ethan, showering him with affection and little gifts they'd brought from Brazil. They were helpful around the house, with Mariana often cooking delicious Brazilian meals for us. I even started to enjoy coming home to the smell of feijoada or moqueca wafting through the house. But as time went on, cultural differences and the language barrier started causing problems. They don't speak much English, and my Portuguese is basic at best. I've been meaning to improve it for years but never found the time between work and family responsibilities. This led to a lot of misunderstandings and frustration on both sides. One major issue was their lack of respect for our privacy. In their culture, family boundaries are much more fluid than what I'm used to. They would often enter our bedroom without knocking, which made me incredibly uncomfortable. Once, I was changing after a shower and Eduardo walked in without warning. It was mortifying for both of us, but when I tried to explain through Sarah that they needed to knock, he seemed confused by why it was such a big deal. They also had a habit of giving unsolicited advice on everything from how we should raise Ethan to how I should manage my career. When Ethan threw a tantrum in a restaurant, Mariana criticized our parenting style in rapid Portuguese, leaving me feeling judged and frustrated. Eduardo constantly questioned why I worked such long hours, suggesting I wasn't spending enough time with family. When I tried to address these issues with Sarah, she would brush them off, saying, "That's just how they are. They mean well." As the weeks turned into months, I found myself becoming more and more stressed. I started working longer hours to avoid coming home. When I was home, I felt like a stranger in my own house. Eduardo and Mariana took over the living room, watching loud Brazilian TV shows all day. They rearranged our kitchen without asking, and any attempt to put things back would result in them doing it again the next day. The situation was affecting my relationship with Ethan too. He was spending most of his time with his grandparents, and they were speaking to him exclusively in Portuguese. While I want him to be bilingual, I started to feel left out of their conversations. One day, Ethan called me Popeye instead of Daddy, and while I know I should have been happy about his language development, it just made me feel more alienated. The breaking point came when their 2-month stay turned into 4 months. Sarah kept making excuses for why they needed to stay longer. First it was because her mom wasn't feeling well, then it was because they wanted to be here for Ethan's birthday. I felt like my opinions and feelings didn't matter. I tried to talk to Sarah about it, but she got defensive. She accused me of not understanding the importance of family in Brazilian culture. She reminded me of how she'd left her entire support system behind to build a life with me in the US. I felt guilty, but also frustrated. Hadn't I always supported her? Hadn't I encouraged her to stay in touch with her family and culture? Now, Sarah wants to invite them back for a 6-month stay. She says it's important for Ethan to spend time with his grandparents and learn about his Brazilian heritage. I understand this, but I can't imagine going through another extended visit like the last one. I suggested a shorter stay of maybe 2 months, but Sarah insists it has to be 6 months because her parents are getting older and the long flight is hard on them. I feel stuck. I don't want to come across as the bad guy who's keeping Ethan from his grandparents, but I also don't want to sacrifice my mental health and the peace in our home. Sarah doesn't seem to understand how difficult the last visit was for me, and I'm worried about the strain this could put on our marriage. The whole situation has made me start questioning things I never thought I would. Are our cultural differences too big to overcome? Am I being selfish for wanting my space? How can we raise Ethan to appreciate both of his cultures without one dominating our household? Am I being unreasonable here? How can I make Sarah understand my perspective without causing a rift in our relationship? I love my wife and son, and I want to find a solution that works for everyone, but right now, I feel like my feelings are being completely disregarded. I'm worried that if we can't find a way to resolve this, it might drive a wedge between us that we can't overcome. Update 1. It's been about 2 weeks since my original post, and a lot has happened. I want to thank everyone for their advice and support. It really helped me gain perspective on the situation and gave me the courage to address it head on. After reading the comments, I realized I needed to have a serious conversation with Sarah about this issue. I decided to take a day off work so we could talk without distractions. I arranged for Ethan to spend the day with a neighbor's kid he often plays with, ensuring we'd have uninterrupted time to discuss everything. The night before our talk, I couldn't sleep. I kept rehearsing what I wanted to say, worried about how Sarah would react. Would she get defensive again? Would this lead to a big fight? Despite my anxiety, I knew we needed to have this conversation for the sake of our marriage. The next morning, after dropping Ethan off, Sarah and I sat down at our kitchen table. I started by explaining how the last visit affected me, giving specific examples of situations that made me uncomfortable. I talked about feeling like a stranger in my own home, the lack of privacy, and how the language barrier made me feel isolated from my own family. I also expressed my concerns about how another long visit might impact our relationship and family dynamics. To my surprise, Sarah broke down in tears. She confessed that she had been feeling guilty about being so far away from her parents, especially since they're getting older. She admitted that she had been pushing for these long visits partly out of this guilt, and partly because she was worried Ethan wouldn't have a strong connection to his Brazilian roots. Sarah opened up about how hard it had been for her to adapt to life in the US, something she hadn't fully shared with me before. She talked about feeling homesick, especially after Ethan was born, and how having her parents around made her feel connected to her home and culture. She also revealed that her parents had been pressuring her to move back to Brazil, which was adding to her stress. We talked for hours, really listening to each other for the first time in a while. Sarah acknowledged that she hadn't fully considered how the visits were affecting me, and she apologized for dismissing my feelings. I, in turn, promised to make more of an effort to incorporate Brazilian culture into our daily lives, so Ethan could still connect with that part of his heritage. As we talked, we realized that this issue was bringing up deeper questions about our multicultural marriage and how we want to raise Ethan. We both agreed that we want him to be connected to both of his cultures, but we needed to find a balance that worked for our family. After a lot of discussion, we came to a compromise. Instead of a 6-month visit, we agreed to invite her parents for 2 months this year. We also decided to plan a family trip to Brazil next year, so Ethan could experience the culture firsthand and spend time with his extended family. This way, Sarah's parents wouldn't have to endure the long flight as often, and we could maintain our household routine. To address the issues we had during the last visit, we agreed to set some ground rules. We'll communicate these rules clearly to her parents before they arrive, with Sarah translating to ensure there are no misunderstandings. Some of these rules include respecting our privacy, not rearranging things in the house without asking, and setting specific quiet hours. I also promised to make more of an effort to learn Portuguese. Sarah found a language exchange group in our area, and we're going to start attending together. This way, I can improve my communication with her parents, and she can help other Portuguese speakers with their English. We also decided to set aside one night a week for a Brazilian culture night where we'll speak Portuguese, cook Brazilian food, and maybe watch Brazilian movies or TV shows together. Sarah also agreed to talk to her parents about their behavior during their last visit. She admitted that she had been avoiding confrontation with them out of respect, but she understood now that it was causing problems in our marriage. She promised to be more assertive in setting boundaries with them in the future. As we finished our conversation, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time in months, I felt like Sarah and I were truly on the same page. We hugged for a long time, both of us feeling emotionally drained but relieved. While I'm feeling more positive about the situation, I'm still a bit apprehensive about the upcoming visit. But I'm hopeful that with clear communication and boundaries, it will be a more positive experience for everyone involved. I know we still have work to do, but I feel like we've taken a big step in the right direction. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I wanted to share how things have been going. Sarah's parents, Eduardo and Mariana, arrived for their 2-month visit about 6 weeks ago. I have to say, things have been much better this time around. The ground rules we set have made a significant difference. Eduardo and Mariana have been respecting our privacy, and they've been more mindful of our routines and preferences. They still watch their Brazilian shows, but they use headphones when Ethan is napping or after 8 p.m. My Portuguese lessons have been going well, and I can now have basic conversations with them. This has helped tremendously in building a better relationship. I've learned that Eduardo has a great sense of humor, and Mariana is an amazing cook. They've been teaching me traditional Brazilian recipes, which has been a fun bonding experience. One evening, Eduardo and I were trying to fix a leaky faucet in the kitchen. Despite our language barrier, we managed to work together, communicating through a mix of broken Portuguese, English, and gestures. It was a small moment, but it felt like a breakthrough in our relationship. Ethan is loving having his grandparents around. They tell him stories about Brazil and teach him Portuguese nursery rhymes. It's heartwarming to see him embracing his Brazilian heritage. The other day, I overheard him teaching his friends some Portuguese words during a playdate, which made me realize how important it is for him to have this connection to his roots. However, it hasn't all been smooth sailing. Last week, we had a bit of a hiccup. Sarah's sister, Luisa, 28F, called to say she was going through a tough breakup and wanted to visit for a few weeks. Sarah immediately said yes without consulting me, which brought back some of my old frustrations. I pulled Sarah aside and reminded her of our agreement to discuss these things together. She apologized and admitted she had acted impulsively out of concern for her sister. We talked it through and decided that Luisa could come for a week, but not until after her parents leave, to avoid overcrowding our house. This incident made me realize that maintaining boundaries is an ongoing process, but I'm proud of how we handled it. We're communicating better and working as a team. Our weekly Brazilian culture nights have become a highlight for all of us. Last week, we attempted to make pão de queijo together. It was a disaster, the kitchen was a mess, and the cheese bread came out hard as rocks, but we laughed through the whole experience. Even Eduardo and Mariana joined in, giving us tips and sharing stories about their own cooking mishaps. As for me, I'm finding that I'm actually enjoying this visit. Don't get me wrong, it's still challenging at times, but it's manageable. I'm looking forward to our trip to Brazil next year, and I feel like I'm developing a genuine relationship with my in-laws. There are still moments of frustration, like when Eduardo tried to give me unsolicited career advice or when Mariana rearranged Ethan's toys without asking. But now, instead of stewing in silence, I'm able to address these issues calmly and directly, with Sarah's help in translating when needed. Overall, I feel like we're finding a balance between honoring Sarah's Brazilian heritage and maintaining our own family unit. It's not perfect, but it's progress, and I'm grateful for that. Update 3, it's been about a year since my original post, and I wanted to give a final update on how things have turned out. Eduardo and Mariana's visit ended on a positive note. The last few weeks were actually quite enjoyable, and I found myself feeling a bit sad when they left. We've kept in touch regularly through video calls, and my improved Portuguese has made these interactions much more meaningful. We did go on our family trip to Brazil as planned. It was an eye-opening experience for me. Seeing Sarah in her home environment, surrounded by her family and culture, gave me a new appreciation for her background. Ethan absolutely loved it, especially playing with his cousins and experiencing all the new sights, sounds, and tastes. The trip also helped me understand why having her parents visit for extended periods was so important to Sarah. Family gatherings in Brazil are lively, frequent affairs, and I could see how much she missed that aspect of her life. We spent a week in Sao Paulo with her extended family, and another week exploring Rio de Janeiro. Watching Ethan's eyes light up as he saw Christ the Redeemer for the first time is a memory I'll cherish forever. Since returning, we've made some changes to our lifestyle. We now have a Brazilian night once a week, where we cook Brazilian food, listen to Brazilian music, and speak only Portuguese. It's become a fun family tradition that Ethan looks forward to. Last week, he insisted on wearing the Brazilian national soccer team jersey his grandfather had given him and pretended to be Neymar all evening. As for future visits from the in-laws, we found a balance that works for everyone. They now visit twice a year, for 1 month each time. This allows Ethan to maintain a strong connection with them without putting too much strain on our daily lives. We've also started exploring the possibility of them staying in a nearby Airbnb for part of their visit, which would give everyone some breathing space. Sarah and I have continued to work on our communication. We've gotten better at expressing our needs and concerns to each other before they become big issues. Our relationship feels stronger than ever. We've even started talking about the possibility of me taking a sabbatical from work next year so we can spend a few months in Brazil, giving Ethan a chance to attend school there for a semester. My relationship with Eduardo and Mariana has improved significantly. During their last visit, Eduardo and I bonded over our shared love of soccer, while Mariana taught me how to make her secret recipe feijoada. They've even started making an effort to learn some English, which has touched me deeply. Ethan is growing into a truly bilingual child, effortlessly switching between English and Portuguese. He's proud of his mixed heritage and often tells his friends about his 2 homes, one in the US and one in Brazil. Seeing him navigate both cultures with such ease makes all the challenges we've faced feel worth it. Looking back, I realize that this whole experience, although challenging, has ultimately brought our family closer together. It's taught us the importance of compromise, clear communication, and respecting each other's backgrounds and needs. I'm grateful for how things have turned out and excited for what the future holds for our multicultural family. One unexpected outcome of this journey has been a deepening of my own connection to my Japanese heritage. Seeing Sarah and Ethan embrace their Brazilian roots inspired me to reconnect with my own cultural background. I've started taking Ethan to Japanese language classes on weekends, and we're planning a trip to Japan next year to visit my extended family. There have been moments when I've wondered how different our lives might have been if we hadn't worked through these challenges. Would we have drifted apart, unable to bridge the cultural divide? Would Ethan have missed out on the rich tapestry of his dual heritage? I'm glad we didn't have to find out. Of course, it's not all perfect. We still have disagreements and misunderstandings, but now we have the tools to work through them constructively. Just last month, we had a heated discussion about whether to send Ethan to a Portuguese immersion school. We didn't see eye to eye at first, but we were able to talk it through and reach a compromise we're both happy with. As I write this, I can hear Sarah and Ethan in the kitchen, chatting away in Portuguese as they prepare brigadeiros for a school bake sale. The house smells of coconut and chocolate, and there's Brazilian music playing softly in the background. It's a far cry from the tension-filled atmosphere of a year ago. I know we'll face more challenges as we continue to navigate our multicultural life. But I'm no longer afraid of those challenges. Instead, I see them as opportunities to grow, both as individuals and as a family. We're creating our own unique blend of American, Brazilian, and Japanese cultures, and I wouldn't have it any other way. To anyone out there facing similar challenges in a multicultural relationship, I want to say, it's not always easy, but it's worth it. With patience, understanding, and a willingness to step out of your comfort zone, you can turn cultural differences from a source of conflict into a source of strength and richness in your life. As for me, I'm looking forward to our next family adventure, whatever it may be. Maybe we'll finally master that pão de queijo recipe, or perhaps I'll convince Sarah to try her hand at making sushi. Either way, I know we'll face it together, as a family united by love and strengthened by our diverse heritage.